So you're talking about then getting into the coaching. And I think many athletes now at many different levels have like targeted like track training to kind of
Yep.
build that kind of capacity.
Yep.
So if we kind of focus on like what Adam Klink's been able to achieve in running a sub 5 mile first, and then we'll kind of stack everything else on top of it, if that's all
That
right.
sounds good. Of
So
course.
one thing I did actually yesterday was I decided, you know what, I don't normally go out and run. So I'm not someone who goes and does a track session. So I just thought I did my morning training session. I was like, I'll go and I'll work at that looks about a mile. I ended up running about 1.2, 1.3 miles, and I was nowhere near 5 minutes. You know, I was under 10, I was under 9, but I wasn't under 8. So, but it gave me an appreciation for the amount of effort in the moment, but also that
Yep.
must go in for months and years previous to be able to get to that. So could you, just for the Gen Pop like myself, kind of give a little insight into what a sub 5 minute mile requires from an athlete?
So when you start getting, you have to look at two things. We look at where they get the energy from, the metabolic pathways, and then we also look at their muscle fiber. And so that kind of a time domain, a 5 minute time domain, is an aerobic time domain. Um, you know, we're looking at, for 5 minutes, probably 80% of your energy that is used to contract your muscles is coming from the aerobic side of the equation, so the oxygen that you breathe. So it does take slow twitch muscle fiber development. It takes an athlete who understands the importance of longer time domains, slower intensities. If we look at intensities, I mean, this is one of the things that people get confused. The number one workout on CrossFit.com is a 5K. And that's interesting, right? That CrossFit is supposed to be constantly varied functional movement, high intensity, but it's a 5K. And the average person does a 5K in over 30 minutes. So how are they classifying that as high intensity? Well, it's a maximal effort. But a lot of people, if you look at it, if you're looking at that pace or that speed to be able to do a 30-minute 5K, that's slow. If you look at it in terms of taking that pace and looking at what it would be per 100-meter interval, it's really not fast. And so part of it is that what you have to recognize is it's based upon the total time domain. Now, the way that athletes get great at those short time domains, such as what Adam did, is he targets the speed that he's trying to achieve. He has a known goal, so he's not training for the unknown. He has a known goal. He has a mile of distance, and he also has to do it in a very specific time domain. So you train the distance, and you have to make sure that the muscles are prepared for the stamina required to cover that volume, which for him was not that big of a deal. And then you have to prepare for the recruitment. So the brain, what it does is it recruits the motor units necessary to match up with the force required to hit that speed. If you never prepare the body for that speed, then the muscles are not going to know what to do. There's going to be no efficiency. And so clearly what he has done is done a lot of training so that the volume, that 1 mile distance, isn't an issue, but he's also done something else. He's done a lot of volume at a 5-minute mile. And that's the key. So like top level athletes, you take a Matt Fraser, you take a Rich Froning, take Tia, Katrin, Camille, they trained 13 different running intensities because they didn't know what the event was. So no matter what came up, their body, their muscles would recognize it and they'd be able to replicate it efficiently.
That's really interesting. So it's like I say, because so much is set out, so he knows he needs to run at a certain pace, and he can initially start by saying, well, I'm not going to run that for 5 minutes. I'm maybe going to do some intervals for shorter periods of time just to kind of build up, like say, that not only the muscle stamina, which will kind of be there, but more the kind of the neural part on top to kind of then get familiar with delivering that for the right amount of time at the right intensity.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, like you just mentioned, the neural side. The central nervous system is essential in this type of a performance. And a lot of people don't realize that you do volume so that the neural side becomes efficient. And if you never do enough volume, your motor recruitment, the efficiency involved, never fully develops. And so there is tremendous value for doing lifts, for example, with a very light weight, but just doing more volume so that the movement pattern becomes familiar. If you never train something, right? Like even if you train nothing but sprinting, that does not mean that you're going to be good at a job. You're not going to be efficient at it. You got to practice it. And it is very clear in watching that video of him doing the 456 mile. This guy has done a lot of training in that particular speed.
Yeah, it really looked like watching that video. It's amazing to watch. And he does look like he's in that kind of, I was talking to a friend about it, that flow state, in that not that it's easy, but that he's just very familiar with that pace and being in that environment. And that's not to detract from how hard it is, but it means he is working efficiently.
Yeah, I'm not convinced it was that hard for him, because he was clearly prepared. And you mentioned pacing. I mean, so if you want to understand his level of competency, this was not a fluke. Like there's no way on earth that a guy would make this kind of an attempt and not know with certainty that he was going to run sub 5. He knew with absolute certainty, and you can see it in his approach. So he's not looking at his watch fair. I mean, he's really not. He's not really aware. He is dictating his speed based upon feel. Remember, he's done so much work, interval work at a sub 5 minute mile, that his body knows immediately what it can be done. It's funny, I run a running class here with CrossFit Mayhem, and we did a workout this week running. And what I had them do was run an increasing longer time domain. And the concept was the feel of pacing. So essentially what we had them do was run 1 minute out, rest 15 seconds. And then what you do is you restart your watch and you run back to the original starting spot. And you turn off your watch, you stop your watch when you reach that spot. For the rule of thumb, if you want a perfect score on a 1 minute run, you have to be plus or minus 1 second. Well, everybody in this entire class, we had 30 people in this class, and they ran all by themselves, COVID rules. And everybody in the class did that. So after you pass, you go on to 2 minutes out. Now we double the 15 seconds. Now we're up to 30 seconds of rest, and then we come back. Everybody in the class made that, and the rule is on 2 minutes is plus or minus 2 minutes. We had 10 of the people in the class run 4 minutes out, rest for a minute, run 4 minutes back, and they made it plus or minus 4 seconds without looking at their watch. So keep in mind, 4 minutes, they're half a mile away and they're hitting a target that's 8 seconds of gap, which is remarkable. But the thing is once you lock in that motor memory, that muscle memory, your body can replicate it by feel. And so what we saw is a guy that knew with 100% certainty that rhythm, he was in the groove and it felt comfortable to him. So like you talk about pacing, I mean, I think that would be a really good subject to talk about because it highlights he's prepared.